Hello, everyone, and welcome to Box§Cast Episode 4. I am Justin,
And I'm Mikko.
and today we're going to be discussing the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and the end of the GP2 and GP3 seasons. This entire episode contains spoilers, so don't watch or listen if you don't want anything ruined for Formula One or either of those two lower formulas.
Yeah, so let's start off with F1 as usual.
Yep, pretty interesting start to the race. Of course, we had Kimi starting from last place on the grid because of failing the floor test after qualifying. That was pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, and of course he had the option to start from the pit lane, but I think Mark Slade, his engineer, had told some guys in the Finnish media that they decided against that because they wanted to get the Maroches and Caterhams in the first lap.
Yep, yeah, as I would as well. Yeah, you definitely want to try and clear those back markers as quickly as you can, because I mean, they have pretty good top speed, so it's entirely possible to get stuck behind one of those guys for sure. Button as well had some damage, some front wing damage. Actually, I don't remember who was that contact with.
With the Button?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I can't remember now. But yeah, Button had some front wing damage. He ended up having to pit for that, I believe, on lap 2, which pretty much destroyed his race. Hamilton also lost out at the start. He had a good start and he went up the inside, but they were going 3 wide into the first corner, and that just wasn't going to happen. So he got squeezed, and Romain Grosjean, I believe, ended up going around his outside.
Yeah.
So he didn't have the best of starts. Certainly Webber didn't have a great start either, but that has been a weakness of his historically, certainly. But Vettel did have a very good start, actually.
Yeah, and I think by the midway to the first corner, I think they were almost 3 or 4 wide at the coming up to the first corner. So someone was going to lose out, and I think so. Nico Rosberg got the second position and held on to that for quite a while.
Yeah, and in the early stages of the race, it looked like he was actually keeping up with Vettel pretty well. Vettel did his typical song and dance where he just takes off into the distance, but it wasn't quite as bad this time as previous races. And purely based on qualifying and how that was going, I was expecting it to be a little bit closer than it ended up being today. Of course, Vettel ended up winning by 30 seconds again, second race in a row now where he's won by half a minute. This time to his teammate Mark Webber. I thought the Mercedes were going to be putting up a little bit more of a fight. I thought the McLaren was going to be a little bit stronger as well because of their high top end speed. They geared that car and set that car up with low downforce to give them the highest top speed, I believe, out of all the cars this weekend. And they actually seemed to struggle more in this race than they did in qualifying and the practice sessions. Jensen certainly very disappointed with his qualifying, getting knocked out in Q2. When in practice, I think practice 3, he had been the 6th fastest car. So he was definitely expecting more. Perez was able to make it into Q3, but I think he only ended up qualifying 9th, I believe it was. So it seemed like, I guess, maybe as the temperature dropped, as the night progressed, it just became less and less favorable for the McLaren and more favorable for other cars. The Force India, for instance, that car really seemed to improve significantly in the race versus what we were seeing in practice in the qualifying sessions.
Yeah, certainly in FP3 we heard Adrian Sutil saying that the car's all over the place and there's understeer and oversteer. So I don't know what happened overnight, but certainly they got the race pace was much better than their quali pace.
Yeah, it seemed that way with Ferrari as well,
Yeah.
which is pretty normal for them. Normally, they aren't super great at qualifying, but of course, this was the first time Fernando Alonso failed to get into Q3 all year. So I think that showed exactly how slow their car was, at least during qualifying. I really wasn't expecting them to be as competitive as they were in the race. Massa did a fantastic job, obviously. Alonso did an even better job considering he started behind Massa, of course. But really, both Ferrari drivers did a great job today in the race, especially when things were looking so dark beforehand.
Yeah, and when we were talking about the other races this season, we've talked about there being a kind of a two-tier race. So I think in this case it was even maybe a three-tier
Yeah,
race
yeah,
because Vettel was in in a tier of his own, and then there was Weber, Rosberg, and Grosjean who are about 30 seconds behind him, and then there's a huge gap over 30 seconds to Alonso, and after that it's more close.
yeah. Then it starts to tighten up a little bit. But yeah, I agree completely. It pretty much was a three-tier race. Vettel, and then Weber, Rosberg, Grosjean, and then everyone else pretty much. Yeah, I mean, the race, I would say it wasn't the best race of the season, but it definitely wasn't the worst.
Yeah.
I think Spa alone is the first one that comes to mind. And you know, part of that could be expectations. You know, we go into
Yeah.
Spa expecting to see something just totally amazing every single year, and most years we're not disappointed. But certainly, I was disappointed this year with Spa. But I really enjoyed this race. I really enjoyed it last year. I thought it was a fantastic race until was it Lewis broke down
Yeah.
from the lead? Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting statistic. I don't know if you saw the Sky Sports feed or stuff for this race, but Crofty got a tweet from someone who pointed out that only one person had actually won the race from pole position. Everyone else that got pole position had DNF'd.
Oh.
So the race is almost like cursed in that way. Vettel's only the second person to start from pole position to actually finish the race. The other person, I don't remember who they said it was. The other person though did also win it. So starting from pole position pretty much guarantees you're either not going to finish the race or you're going to finish in first.
And more surprisingly, maybe Mark Webber didn't DNF this time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I was really hoping for a Vettel DNF, to be honest. Not because I especially don't like the guy. I am warming to. I still don't like him. I don't want people to get the wrong impression. But I definitely don't dislike him as much as I used to. But it just would have made things a lot more interesting. I feel if Vettel had DNF'd, then Rosberg and Grosjean maybe just would have been pushing that little bit harder because they knew they
Hmm.
would have known that, you know, first place is only a few seconds up the road rather than being 30 seconds up the road. And it's definitely more exciting watching battles for the lead. That's one thing that Crofty was talking about on Twitter today. Someone was saying it was a boring race, and he was saying, "Oh no, but you know, it's all exciting stuff in the midfield." And you know, I kind of agree with both. It is exciting stuff in the midfield, but it is also more exciting to watch two or three cars race for the lead rather than for fifth or
Mm.
sixth or seventh place.
Yeah, I have to agree. And uh, I think for what struck me in the race was that the Williams team weren't that bad
Yeah,
actually this
definitely an
time.
improvement. Not quite good enough to get into the points. Maldonado was less than 2 seconds behind Suttel in the end, though. So I mean, he was 2 seconds away from getting his second point of the season, and Williams' second point as well. And they have slowed down their pit stops because of the issues that they had in Japan. And where was the other issue?
And I think in India
Oh
where
yeah, that's right.
Maldonado's wheel not come off.
That's right. In India and Japan, they had those wheel nut issues, so they went back to an older system. So their pit stops have been catastrophically slow recently, like in the 4.5 to 6 second range. So that alone, if they didn't have that pit stop problem, Maldonado easily would have been looking at 10th, maybe even ninth, and, which I hate to say as a Perez fan, but Maldonado could have been a few seconds farther up the road if it wasn't for those pit issues that they've been having recently.
Yeah, and good job from Valtteri Bottas. I think that this was one of his best races yet. I think he was showing good pace, and he was in the points for a good portion of the race. But he
Yeah.
had to make that last last stop for options. But I think the problem with him this season has been his starts. He's been after the first lap. He's been behind Caterhams and whatever. So he
I
really
noticed
need.
that. I think Vandergaard got in front of him
Yeah,
today in Abu Dhabi, and I don't, he wasn't back there for too long. I think maybe it was just a few laps or so, maybe 5 laps tops. But you really, yeah, you can't be doing that. I mean, that's something that's easy to fix, though. He's a rookie. This is still his first season with a Formula One car, and of course, if he does stay around next year, which I do hope he does, if he's around next year, it's probably going to be totally different launch processes. But the good news there is that he'll be starting from square one, just like everyone else on the grid. There's a lot of changes coming next year, and that could be a big equalizer that helps the rookies out significantly.
yeah. I mean, if you look at the difference between him and Maldonado, I think there's one of Maldonado's biggest strengths. You can see him almost every race going up maybe 3 or 4 or 5 positions in the first lap.
Yeah, and I think part of that is his aggressive driving
Yeah,
style,
yeah,
which is also has its downsides as well. So he's got kind of like that Alonso attitude at the start, almost like someone racing in the F1 2013 video game. They're just like go for as many positions as you can immediately, and just try and get as high up as you can right in that first lap when everyone's all bunched up. And it's not a bad idea, just sometimes the execution leaves something to be desired when it comes to Maldonado.
yeah. And what
The uh,
else?
the Force Indias did great though. Both Force Indias into the points. I mean, that's fantastic. DeResta, he ended up one stopping, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think he did. So yeah, I mean, great job from Force India to get sixth and 10th. That is going to close that gap to McLaren. It's still not looking likely like they're going to pass McLaren for sixth in the champion, or is it fifth? Now I forget. But I don't.
Fifth, I think.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I don't think they're going to be passing McLaren just yet. Yeah, it is for fifth. But they are now only 18 points behind. So yeah, they need to outscore McLaren by 9 points in each of the next two races.
Yeah, and I think the rest has been under pressure after his long DNF streak. So I think this was a good race for him.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. He really he would have silenced some of the skeptics. We've talked about Paul di Resta in previous episodes, and generally, as we said, he's just kind of a driver that doesn't really bring up any emotion one way or the other. But today, I got to say, he really did a good job. And I was kind of expecting his tires to fall off, and I thought that was going to move Perez up a place, so I was kind of happy about that. But he held on to it. He was in front of Hamilton in the end. I mean, those Force Indias were both very difficult to pass in the race today, which did ruin the race for some other people. But still, just great to see them being competitive.
Yeah. And speaking of Hamilton, his race was kind of miserable for a long period of time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he could not get past. So till he had a hard time getting past one of the Saubers. Was it Gutierrez or was it Hulkenberg? I think it was Gutierrez even.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, the Saubers do tend to have good straight line speed, at least this year. Last
Yeah.
year too, but yeah, they tend to have good straight line speed, so that does make things a little bit difficult. I do have to say that I really do enjoy that venue. Just the visual aspect of the
Yeah,
entire race is just absolutely fantastic. Even when the race is even when there's not a lot going on, there's always something to look at on the screen because it's just so visually stunning. With the sun setting and then the lights coming on and then the hotel lighting up. I mean, it's just really amazing. I love that they had the fireworks as well. I don't specifically remember if there was fireworks last year. There probably were, but that just looked fantastic. I really enjoyed the fireworks with the hotel there as well. It just looked great.
yeah, and I think the accommodations in the whole area has been improving all the time every year, with Ferrari World and all that stuff with I think there's been concerts. I know Muse, they played I think yesterday, and Depeche Mode, they played I think today,
Wow.
so Sunday. So they're, of course, they have a lot of money, and
Yeah.
money to spend and attract a lot of people. So I think they really pulled it off this year, because I heard that the race was actually sold out.
Really? Wow, good
Yeah,
for them. I did notice that the majority of the crowd, from what I can tell, looked pretty Anglo-Saxon. I don't know if they were British, but there was a lot of white people in the crowd, is what I'm saying,
yeah,
which is pretty interesting for a race that's in the Middle East. But clearly, they've done something right to attract these people to the track. You know, to spend all of this money to come out here to see it. They've really created a unique venue and a unique Grand Prix, that people really want to come and see. And you're right, all the other stuff that surrounds the Grand Prix just helps attract even more and more people. Really kudos to them, especially for continuing to develop the area and the track and all that kind of stuff, the attractions. That's really what you got to do in Formula One. You got to almost treat the track like it's a Formula One car and just keep developing it.
yeah. And everything in Formula One is kind of big at the moment. So uh, it's all a part of the show and the circus, as they say.
Absolutely. One last thing I would like to hit on before we move on to the lower formulas is that this race did kind of make things a little bit less interesting in the fight for second place in the Constructors' Championship.
Hmm.
Everybody extended their gap. Mercedes extended their gap to Ferrari, and Ferrari extended their gap to Lotus. So that does take a little bit of the excitement out of that second place fight for the Constructors' Championship. It's looking pretty good for Mercedes to finish in second, Ferrari to finish in third, and Lotus to finish in fourth.
Yep. So moving on to the other formulas, we of course saw two two title deciders, if you will. In GP2 and GP3, the titles were undecided until the last round.
And at least in GP2, I know you know a little bit more about GP3. I know a little bit more about GP2. In GP2, though, I think there was actually five potential
Yeah,
winners. So very exciting finish to that season, to go into the final race with five potential people with a mathematical possibility of winning the championship. I mean, that's fantastic. I thought Formula One in 2012 was amazing when it went down to the second half of the last race, and that was only with two people. So to go down to the last race with five people, really, really amazing.
yeah. I can't remember how it was in the GP3, but I think
There's
the
at
title.
least two.
Yeah, I think it was between Kvyat and who was the other guy?
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Uh,
I need to check. Uh, Regalia.
that sounds right.
Yeah, Facu
Okay.
Regalia. Yeah,
Okay. But so it was just between the two of them.
yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay. But still, it's always great when things go down to the end. It's kind of a bummer that Sebastian Vettel won both championships so early in the season. for
Hmm.
Formula One. There's still lots to play for, and the sport is exciting enough. Just watching people race for second and stuff. But it certainly helps when you have things that go down to the wire. And I'm sure that helped with their ratings, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think the racing's been quite exciting this year in GP3 and GP2, as it always is. Lots of action.
So tell me a little bit about GP3, because you know more about that one than I do.
Yeah, so GP3 started in 2010, and they update their formula in 3-year periods. I don't know if they do that in GP2 as well, but
I
they,
don't know if it's in specific increments or not.
yeah. So of course chassis is made by Delara, so all the chassis are the same as with GP2, I think.
Yep.
And they started off with 2-liter turbo engines, which produced 280 horsepower, and 6-speed gearbox, and quite small Pirelli tires compared to the Formula Ones and GP2s. And then they updated the configuration for this year. Again, Dallara chassis and a 3.5-liter V6 with 400 horsepower engines, and the same with the gearboxes and Pirelli tires. So uh, they decided to increase the power just because it seemed kind of a big step from GP3 to GP2.
Yeah, yeah. GP2's got about 200 more horsepower. Well, it would have been about 320 more horsepower versus
Yeah,
the 2010 engine. So yeah, I'm sure that helps. Also, that new engine is naturally aspirated, right? It's not a
yeah,
turbo engine. Okay, yeah. So
yeah,
they get a little bit better torque and stuff like that, I would imagine as well. And Bottas was in GP3, right? And he actually skipped GP2. He went straight from GP3 to F1.
yeah. He of course made those. He attended those 15 test sessions for Williams last year,
Yep.
and then of course Gutierrez, the first guy in 2010 to win the GP3 championship, and he went to GP2 after that. And last year's champion Mitch Evans is in GP2 right now. I
This
don't
year.
know how
Yep.
he did.
Pretty good. He wasn't like in the top. I don't think he was one of the contenders for the championship, but I do remember seeing him in the races. He's good. I mean, he is Mark Webber's protege of sorts.
Yeah, and of course this year the championship went to Daniel Kvyat, the Russian Russian youngster who's racing for Toro Rosso next year.
Yep. Yeah. Very young youngster. That should be interesting. He doesn't even have his super license yet, so all of that is kind of provisional. He is basically signed, but he doesn't technically have his F1 super license yet. But I do believe he's going to get that this month.
Yeah, I think they're gonna do some test with Toro Rosso, so I think he's gonna get his super license soon. But I think if you compare to him to Sergei Sirotkin, who we don't really know much about, so I'm not actually that worried about Kvyat. I think he's gonna do fine in Formula One, but I'm not so sure about Sergei Sirotkin.
I can't imagine. I don't really know. I haven't seen him race. I haven't seen any races of GP3 with him in it. But I can't imagine him, being all that much worse than the rookies this year. And they didn't really have any problems. Rookies every year always have problems, but this year's rookies weren't especially bad or anything like that.
Hmm.
And we of course don't know how many rookies are coming in for 2014. I doubt it's as many as 2013, though. We had 5 rookies out of 22 drivers this year. Over 20% of the field was brand new to the sport of Formula One specifically. So I think he'll be okay. Of course, he's also going to be in a Toro Rosso.
Yeah.
It's not like he's going to be up at the front battling with Vettel and Hamilton and Alonso. More than likely, he'll be battling with Verne and the Williamses and those types. So But I think I think he'll probably do fine, especially if he's the GP3 champion.
Hmm.
Clearly he's got the speed. He just needs some practice, some time to mature, and I almost hope that it's not too early for the guy. Jensen Button was talking about that, how it can be detrimental to your career if you get brought into F1 too soon.
Yeah. So I think uh, Tony Villander, who's the new commentator in Finnish Formula One, uh, the whatever the broadcaster is in Finland, MTV3. So I think he said it best that in the lower formulas, it's not about the amount of wins you have, but more about the fact that of how you win. It's about winning like with a big margin, because that's how you really show that you're one of a kind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not just about winning, but it. I would even say a big part of it is avoiding accidents and stuff like that. Because if they see someone who's got 4 or 5 wins in the season, but who also has 6 or 7 DNFs or something like that, then they're probably gonna get passed up for somebody who's a little bit more consistent. Um, I know most Formula One teams would prefer to be on the podium 4 out of 5 races rather than just winning 1 out of 5 races, because you get more points that way with consistency rather than these
Yeah.
moments of brilliance and then a bunch of DNFs, kind of Maldonado style.
Yeah, I think a good comparison is comparing Daniel Kvyat to Carlos Sainz Jr., who's we know that he's fast. He's been uh, he's been on the podium a couple of times this season, but he's also been disqualified for, I mean, really causing mayhem on the track this year.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And F1 teams look at all the whole package
Yeah.
of a driver, and some of the F1 teams actually are forced to look at the whole package plus their wallet.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's even more to it than just positive results and clean racing. Sometimes you need positive results, clean racing, and a little bit of money.
Yeah. But I think some people are saying that that's how the world is now, but I think it's been that kind of like that for a long time in Formula One, so I don't think it's a new thing per se.
Yeah. I think if anything, what's happened is that the sport has outgrown itself almost. The sport has, and this goes for the lower formulas even as well, because of television and the internet and satellite TVs and all that kind of stuff. It's just there's so much more of everything.
Yeah.
There's more races on the calendar. There's more media stuff to do. There's just more of everything, and that includes needing more money. I think you're right. Money has always been an important part of racing. It's just now, when we say money, we mean millions of dollars rather than, back in the day it may have just been thousands of dollars. And of course, there's inflation. The value of money goes down over time. But yeah, I don't think inflation has is matching up with the increased costs of F1. So if anything, that's kind of what's gotten out of hand, is that the sport's kind of grown up too fast versus the economy and that sort of thing. So I mean, it's definitely something that I think needs to be looked into, considered. One kind of idea that I had, just kind of spitballing one day in my head, I was thinking maybe, and this is for Formula One specifically, if the higher end teams, if they instituted some sort of basically a fee for teams that spent more than $100 million. So you wouldn't restrict them from spending $100 million, but if you spend over $100 million or $150 million or whatever figure you want to put up there, if you go over that, then you have to donate $5 million to the lower end teams or something like that. Basically, it's a penalty for you having so much money. It's not a restriction, but it just kind of helps the other teams along. So, they would say, hey, Red Bull, if you want to spend $200 million on your car, that's fine, but you got to give $5 million that gets split evenly amongst the Marussias and the Caterhams and so on.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the problem with that is also that you have to look at all the people in the factory and all that. I mean, they're still humans working at that factory, and when if there would be uh, some kind of budget limit or whatever, then they would just, if they decide, okay, Red Bull, you have to cut by 100 million or whatever, then they would have to lose.
I don't think they would, though. I think they would much prefer to just spend, $195 million and then donate the other 5 million rather than cut their budget down to 100 million. I'm not saying it's a perfect idea, but these ideas need to start happening. There needs to be some sort of discussion going on within the FIA or whoever decides all this type of stuff. They need to start doing something to start addressing this issue. Especially now that we have a radical change in the rules, I feel like they can really focus a little bit on the cost of the sport.
Yeah, of course, the cost is just going up with the engines next year, so yeah, we need to have a look at the long term, if there's gonna be a new engine freeze or engine rule freeze after a couple of years.
Yeah, something's got to happen though. They got to start figuring out something. People got, whoever it is, I don't know, whoever's in charge, they got to start coming together and start trying to work on a solution. No idea is a bad idea. Just yell something out and let's talk about it, type of deal. So let's move on to GP2. GP2 cars are a little bit more powerful. They're 612 horsepower, limited to 10,000 RPM, 4 valves per cylinder, and a 6-speed paddle-shifted transmission. Same type of transmission, basically, as the GP3 cars. They're similar weight to the F1 cars, actually, about 1,500 pounds, 688 kilograms with the driver inside. They also run the Pirelli P0 tires. Of course, both of the lower formulas run the same compound as F1. I believe it might be different construction, but it's the same compound. And the Pirelli tires are designed to grip on themselves. So as rubber gets laid down, that increases the amount of grip on the track. So basically, the GP2 and GP3 cars go out there, put down some rubber for the F1 guys, and that makes their jobs just that much easier.
Yeah, of course, the GP3 tires they don't look anything like the P0 tires, so the compound is the same, but the construction or the overall look and the rim size and all that's completely different.
Yeah. And GP2 has been around for a little bit longer than GP3. I believe the maiden season was 2005, and a lot of F1 drivers, especially because the formula's been around for longer than GP3, there's a lot of F1 drivers that participated in GP2 seasons in the past. Nico Rosberg won the GP2 championship in 2005, 8 years ago. And that year, Heikki Kovalainen came in second, and Scott Speed came in third, my least favorite American race car driver ever. And then in 2006, Lewis Hamilton came in first, with Nelson Piquet Jr. in second. 2007, Timo Glock won. 2008, Bruno Senna came in second place. 2009, Nico Hulkenberg won with Vitaly Petrov behind. 2010, Pastor Maldonado won it in front of Sergio Perez. Pastor Maldonado is older than Sergio Perez, though. Sergio Perez in 2010 would have been like 19 years old or something like that. He's still a young guy. With Jules Bianchi coming in third. Jules Bianchi also came in third for GP2 in 2011 as well, which is the year that Romain Grosjean won. So he has a very successful GP2 career. 2012, which was last year, the guy who won it was Davide Valsecchi, and he is the development driver for Lotus. He's
Yeah.
an Italian driver with an absolutely awesome accent. I just love how that guy talks, Valsecchi. It's just awesome to hear. And the third place was Esteban Gutierrez after he moved up from GP3. And then this year, it went down to the wire, as we mentioned before. 5 drivers were in contention, and Fabio Leimer did end up winning the championship. And Sam Bird came in second place with his new team, Russian Time. And James Calado, the Brit, came in third. I believe I don't know if James Calado was new to his team this year or if he was new to GP2 this year, but there's something new for him. So to come in third was definitely a good result from him. And I've actually I haven't seen the Abu Dhabi races yet. I haven't been able to find anywhere to see them yet. But it's been a really exciting season so far. There, you do see your fair share of kind of naughty driving in the lower formulas, but that's pretty much to be expected. I mean, you see a fair share of naughty driving in Formula One even. So it's no surprise that these guys do have incidents with each other and disagreements and stuff. Um, I just started getting into GP2 this year with the Malaysian races, and I don't remember who it was, but somebody during practice or qualifying actually forced another driver off the track, really, really intentionally too. Like he pulled up alongside, slowed down, and then just right over to the side, pushed the guy right off the track. He did get a penalty for that, but that's just the type of stuff that you see in these lower formulas sometimes, which is a little bit disgusting, but it was a really good season. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed all the tracks. I wish it was a little bit longer, even the season. For instance, they don't race the GP2 or GP3 at the Circuit of Americas in Austin, which I think would be a perfect venue for those.
Yeah, of course they're trying to keep the cost down. I know it probably costs a lot of money to bring the circus to America.
Yeah,
So I think that's a part of it. I
yeah.
think they're racing in 11 different circuits
Yeah, I
this
guess
year.
they really they just stick to Asia and Europe is really the only places that they go to. The traditional European circuits, and then your Malaysias, your Bahrains, and your Singapores, and all those types of places. So they go to, gosh, did they race in Japan though? I don't think, yeah, because they have their own lower
No, no.
formulas in Japan. Yeah, so they don't race in Japan, but they do race at pretty much all the other Asian venues, except Korea, right? They don't race at Korea either.
No, and they don't race in India either.
Oh, right, right. That's right. Yeah, I remember James Calado doing the Friday practice and talking about how much he enjoyed driving the track for the first time. So, yeah, clearly they don't go to India either. But yeah, they do the pretty much just the Asian and the European races. They don't go to Albert Park in Australia.
Yeah.
They don't go to Interlagos in Brazil. Boy, that would be cool to see, though, those cars in Brazil. I think that would be fun to see. But yeah, Russian Time ended up winning the Constructors' Championship this year. They were a new team as of 2013. They were built up from the ashes of iSport International, which was the team that won both championships in 2007 with Timo Glock. And Russian Time's first win was in Bahrain in the sprint race with Sam Bird. He was definitely the stronger of the two drivers in that pairing. Um, he also won the Monaco feature race. That's always big. That always gets people to notice you if you win Monaco. He won
Yeah.
the Silverstone feature race, another classic track. He won the Spa feature race. I mean, that's 3 of the most legendary tracks in the world right there: Monaco, Silverstone, Spa. And then he also won the Singapore sprint race as well. Like I said earlier, he did end up finishing second in the championship, not first. But he's also a development driver for Mercedes. He's done some BBC commentary stuff, so he's definitely a busy guy. I don't know if he's going to get a drive for 2014 or not. It's looking like people like Magnussen even might get a drive ahead of Sam Bird, which I do think is a little disappointing. He seems like a very mature and fast driver as well. He seems to be a cut above most of the GP2 field.
Yeah, of course he is a little bit older, or maybe a lot older than
Yeah.
most of the guys in GP2. But I think what's great about these lower formulas, at least I know in GP2, that there's a rule that if you win the championship, that you can't come back
For
any
1 year.
longer.
For 1 year. You have to take one
Yeah.
year off. You can come back the year after that. So Fabio Leimer cannot participate in GP2 for 2014, but he can come back for 2015. Similarly, Davide Valsecchi, who won last year, he could not participate this year, but he is eligible to participate in 2014.
Yeah.
And of course,
And
also in GP2, we have the American-born Alex Rossi, who won the feature race in Abu Dhabi just yesterday on Saturday. It was his first win of the season, his fourth podium. He got second, I believe, in Monza. Let me double check. Yep, he got second in the Monza sprint race, and he got third in the Bahrain feature race, and he got third in the Spa feature race as well. So 4 podiums and a victory as an American in his rookie season of GP2. I got to say he is definitely one of my favorite drivers. You know, you have to love the Finnish drivers. I have to love American drivers that aren't Scott Speed. And Alexander Rossi is not Scott Speed. Alexander Rossi is going to make everyone forget about that horrible, horrible guy who drove for Toro Rosso. I really don't. He sets such a bad example for Americans in single-seater racing. So, but Alex Rossi, I really do believe he is the future Formula One American driver. Probably not for 2014. I don't see that happening unless he's got boatloads of cash, and I don't know what his financial situation is like. But he's definitely a future F1 driver, possibly in 2015.
yeah, and related to this channel, we're maybe trying to get an interview with him.
Trying, yep.
Yeah, when the circus comes back to the Circuit of the Americas in a few weeks. Is it 2 weeks now?
Let's see. It's not this coming Wednesday. It's the Wednesday after this Wednesday. I believe that's the 13th. Yep, it's Wednesday, November 13th. He's actually going to be at 2 things that I'm going to. There's a FOTA forum. That's the Formula One Teams Association. There's a free forum that's going to be taking place in or around Austin. It was completely free. I guess that's just how it goes in America and F1. There just might not be enough interest. I don't know if they charge for this type of thing in other countries, but it was free here. But it was first come, first serve, so I just kind of had to sign up as soon as I heard about it, and then I was lucky enough to get tickets for it. So I'm going to that. The FOTA forum is going to be Sergio Perez is going to be there, Esteban Gutierrez is going to be there, Pastor Maldonado is going to be there, and Alexander Rossi as well is going to be there. I don't remember if there's a 5th person, but I think there might be that I'm forgetting. But I'm definitely very excited to just be in the same room with these guys and potentially even ask them a question. And then after that FOTA forum, we're going to a karting event in or around Austin as well. That is just Alexander Rossi. It's at K1 Speed in Austin, Texas, and he's going to be doing some lap times in I think it's like a 25 horsepower electric go-kart. And he's going to be, and people are going to be trying to see if they can beat his time or get as close. I hope no one beats his time, seeing as he's a racing driver. But it should be pretty interesting. I've contacted Caterham and talked about maybe scheduling a little short sit down with Alex to ask a few questions. They haven't said yes yet, but they haven't said no yet, so it's still very much a possibility. But either way, I'm going because I just want to drive some go-karts and and meet some F1 drivers and stuff. So it should be pretty good, and it'll definitely be some content for the channel, though. We'll be getting lots of pictures, lots of video, and stuff like that. So it should be pretty interesting.
Yep, tune in for that. We'll try to get as much content as we can, and yeah, I think that's pretty much enough for this podcast.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for listening, everyone. Join us next time. There's no race next weekend, so we are going to be talking about one or two topics that aren't specifically related to a race, and we may or may not have a special guest on the podcast as well. I don't want to give that away just in case it doesn't happen, but we might have a special guest on the podcast for the next episode. So be on the lookout for that, and thanks again for watching, guys.
Yeah, thanks for watching.